All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my friend Les Leopold. Les is an author and the executive director of the Labor Institute and the Public Health Institute in New York. His latest book is How to Make $1 Million an Hour, Why Hedge Fund Managers Get Away with Siphoning Off America's Wealth. You can find him on Twitter at Les Leopold. You can find the book on many different sites, including Amazon. Les, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Les, I got to tell you, I'm only through the first few chapters of the book, but it's really a great piece. You actually lay out in the book is actually kind of structured as sort of a 12-step program on how to become an evil hedge fund manager, but you take a really wonky subject and really make it, easily digestible. So let's just start out with even just like the first chapter that you have there. You describe how we have lots of rich people in the country. We have movie stars, athletes, even corporate CEOs. However, you found that the amount of money that the top people in each of those fields make, which is quite a lot of money, doesn't even come close to what the top hedge fund managers make. Tell us all about it.
Well, I was very concerned, I am very concerned about the distribution of income, the inequality that keeps it growing and growing and growing. And I wanted to see what was pulling us apart. And every time I talk to people about it, they say, well, there are a lot of rich people in the country. Why are you picking up financiers? Why are you, there's movie stars and athletes and all that. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to look at the top 10 athletes, movie stars, authors, CEOs, bank presidents, on and on and on, the top 10 of everything. And then I was going to compare it to the top 10 hedge fund people. And lo and behold, when I looked at the hedge fund people, who I thought were the most outrageous money earners in the country, they were making 100 times more than the richest people I could find. So I realized something was really amiss in how this country's put together. On top of that, I'd read all this stuff about how wonderful these hedge fund people were and how all the great contributions they were making to society and how much value their work had to us. And I said, okay, I'm going to try to figure out.
If they're making that much money, clearly they must be adding so much value to our whole society, right?
That's the assumption, right? The assumption is that if you make a lot of money, economically speaking, it means by definition that you're producing a lot of value to society. So I wanted to see if that was really true. And lo and behold, it's not true. And in fact, the money comes from a whole lot of fairly ethically challenged steps that these guys take. You don't make that much money and stay squeaky clean, I believe.
No, obviously, but let's just take a step back because again, one of the great thing about the book, Les, is actually you really do lay it out in a really just a very complex scheme that these guys have, and you kind of break it down. But let's just start at the very beginning. If people don't really understand what a hedge fund actually is, what exactly is a hedge fund, and what are these hedge fund managers actually doing?
Somebody working in a hedge fund is working in the wholesale garden supply business. They work with hedges.
Yeah.
Actually, that was the first thing I thought when I looked into this. But actually, what they are investment funds for the super rich. You can't be in a hedge fund. You can't give your money to a hedge fund manager to invest for you unless you put up $1 million minimum. So this is a plaything for the rich. Now, the important thing to understand, the motivation kind of behind all this, is if you're a rich person, you believe by definition that you deserve a higher rate of return than all the rest of us in society. If we're getting 1% in our savings account, well, if you're a hedge fund investor, you expect 10, 20%. Why?
It's only fair.
Because you're rich and powerful.
Right.
You expect this because it is your due. Now, remember, you're not going to do one thing for it. You're just going to give your money to a hedge fund person, and you're going to sit back and you expect a double-digit rate of return year in and year out. And frankly, you don't care what this person does as long as they produce it. So the pressure is on for these people to produce what they call alpha profits, more than what you could get putting it in a mutual fund or in the stock market. Now, how the heck can they do that? How can they beat the market year in and year out? That was what I was looking at.
So how do they do that exactly?
They cheat.
Yeah.
Let me give you one that is one of the wonky ones, but one that I think says it all. One of the top hedge fund people, a guy who was making in his best year, 2010. This is 2 years after the crash. He made about $2.4 million an hour.
Wow.
So in 1 hour, he made as much as what it takes the average family in America to make in 47 years. So in 1 hour, he made as much as the average family makes in 47 years. Think about the math involved in that, 1 hour, 47 years. Okay, so he was praised in all these books about how he bet against the housing market, and he was smart, and he was wise, and he saw it coming, and so he made billions of dollars betting against the housing market. He saw the bubble, and he was smart enough to get away from it and actually bet against it. Well, here's what he actually did. He colluded with big investment banks like Goldman Sachs to create securities based on housing mortgages that were designed to fail so that he could bet against them. Now think about this. He was creating a product. Let's say he was creating a car. He was producing a car that was going to crash so that he could take out the insurance on the car and collect the money for the crash. Or he was basically building a house that would burn down so that he could collect the insurance on the fire. That's literally what he did. Now, since they didn't tell Goldman Sachs didn't tell the investors about this and had to pay a $500 million fine. But the hedge fund guy walked off with $1 billion, and they couldn't nail him on anything because it wasn't his security. He was just colluding with Goldman Sachs to create it. He was picking the worst possible mortgages to put in this mortgage-backed security. He was putting the worst subprime mortgages in it, so because he knew they were going to fail, and that way he could bet against them. He could short them, as it's called. So I'm thinking, oh wow, that's a wonderful thing to do for society. Build houses so they collapse, and then collect on the insurance when they do collapse. What possible social value does that create? It turned out to be a crime for Goldman Sachs to be involved in it.
But also, another side of this is that a lot of these instances, when you're building the houses that you know are going to collapse or that you know you're going to light on fire, the companies are also at the same time saying these houses are fireproof and they're wonderful and they're the safest, most wonderful houses in the universe.
That's why Goldman Sachs got nailed, because they were they were selling the security.
Right.
So they were selling it as a fireproof house, and not only that, they were saying that the hedge fund guy was involved, was also buying, was helping to fireproof the house. They basically lied about his role in all of this. So, but the big question is, how can we let this go on? The only justification for it would be if this produced something positive for the economy. What it in fact did was accelerated the collapse of the housing bubble. It made it worse. It put more junk out there, and he wasn't the only one doing it. A bunch of hedge funds were doing this. This was their play. Build a house that's going to collapse, take insurance out so that you collect the money when it collapses. So they were siphoning money out of the collapse of the American economy. Pretty sick as far as I'm concerned. But that's just one of the many things that they do. I thought that was a nice twist.